Hey guys, so something I've been promising for a while now is the new version of the cast bullets, so molds for cast bullets for air guns. This started primarily for Huben and continued to be useful in other air guns as well, as you will see during this video. So what I have for you. So let's talk theory a little bit first. I think that the tendency for slugs in air guns will be higher and higher as time goes by, because air guns are getting to be a really long range performing guns, and for that pellet is great. Actually, pellet is great. The only problem is that the BC is relatively low. So the longer the shot, you will lose a lot of energy in that shot, and because you lose a lot of energy, you lose a lot of velocity downrange, and because you lose velocity, it's more affected by wind and other conditions of the outdoors, which are, as you've probably seen from our previous videos, quite obvious and quite have a very, very big effect on the accuracy. So the idea is to have a slug which has a better BC, and the only thing that was not done till now is to have a slug that would actually work in air guns. That's the biggest issue. So this is kind of my focus of interest, and I've been researching this and trying things out for quite a while now, and I've got some good result. And the idea behind this is that you design a boat tail round nose bullet or a slug that actually doesn't have too much friction, because in most cases when you think about slugs in air guns, you just put slugs that are either designed for firearm and you put them in air guns, in which case you get probably very bad results because they have way too high friction, or they're too heavy and too hard of an alloy or something like that. Or the second option is what the industry is offering you, and that is like H&N has the pile drivers and the rabbit magnums, and there are various others as well that are shaped as bullets, but none of them are really efficient, and if they are, they're just too small of a diameter to shoot accurately of the air gun, because everyone is too afraid that the pellet, actually the slug, will be so tight that it will either jam in the gun or lose too much velocity, so you get too low velocity, muzzle energy, not muzzle energy, muzzle velocity. So because of that, most of them are not tight enough in the barrel and you cannot get any accuracy. And also the shapes are usually not efficient, so they really are more of a thing that you see, and then you want to try it out and then see, okay, let's get back to pellets. Now I'm still gonna say that the pellet, if you're shooting a close range and you have a low power gun, it's definitely not only the best, the only choice to go. So don't think of those as a replacement, think of those as an extension. First of all, I have to mention that most of, not most of it, but the idea and the first step for these is actually done by Huben. As you know, Huben has had a limited supply of their slugs, there's no secret that this one is actually based on that one, so the shape is virtually the same. So let's make a close-up of this, hopefully you can see it well. So the shape is virtually the same. And the idea behind this is to have, as I mentioned, round nose and boat tail. So low drag, high BC. It must not be too long in order for the twist in most barrels to be sufficient. And it has rings, and those rings are the key to the whole theory on slugs for air guns. you have front rings which are smaller, actually same diameter as air pellet head, and the rear ring which is slightly bigger to make the seal to the barrel. So similar to what the skirt of a pellet does. So in this sense, they simulate the friction of a pellet and have a BC of a, well, slug, good slug that has a good BC for its sectional density. And the result is really spectacular. Okay, so moving on. All of those are designed for Lothar-Walther barrels, and they are designed to be used either in unchoked or in choked barrels. So this will perform very well in choked barrel, unlike most slugs. Actually, they're even designed to be used with choked barrels. And I have, of course, I'm not offering pellets here. I'm offering molds for casting pellets. And I made a selection of 3 different diameters. 2 of them are these 2, are made for 22 caliber, so 5.5, and this one is 25, so 635. Now, why I have 2 versions of 22? Simply because, as I mentioned in the start, my previous goal was to have a good bullet, good slug for Huben. And Huben still prefers a slightly bigger dimension, and it has definitely enough power, so that additional friction of a bigger dimension doesn't really play a key role here. So that's why I have a regular 22, which has the diameter of what is equivalent to the diameter of the pellet head. So the front rings are actually 5.52 millimeters. And I have the slightly bigger version, which is meant for Huben. Actually, I would also recommend this one for any other airgun that is not choked and can produce relatively high powers. But we will get to the powers later. And this one is diameter about 5.54 to 5.55. So it just fits the Huben magazine perfectly. Version 1 and version 2, it doesn't really matter which one you have. And you will need a slight force to push it in, which is good, because that way the slug is snug in its hole and it cannot vibrate once it is fired. And the 25, which is its diameter is about, so again, what is equivalent to the pellet head diameter, so the front rings are about 6.35, actually just under 6.35 millimeters. So that is again equivalent to the pellets, so you have about the same characteristics. Okay, so let's get to what are the upsides, what are the downsides. As you notice here, I really tested a lot from different alloys, different sizes. I had 3 different sizes, that's why you have 6 molds here, so 3 pairs of each. And this is the pellets that we will be offering. At first, we will be only offering through group buy from MP Molds. So MP Molds is the manufacturer who makes and will sell these molds. If the interest is high, then after a while they will be available just as a regular purchase on their website. Otherwise, you will have to go through their group purchase, which I will put in the link below. So just look in the link below. Over there you will see a thread when you can order any of these, and there will also be, after a while, probably not immediately as when I post this video, but after a while there will be the dimension of each pellet, so you can see and make sure that it fits your airgun. So let's go to what airguns you can use this in. Well, first of all, these are heavier than pellets. They are cast bullets. They don't need any sizing. Actually, they are made that way that sizing is even not possible. Because of the high quality of these molds, sizing is really not that necessary, and also the rings are very narrow, and that means that they will shape themselves as immediately as I put them in a barrel. And in most cases, except with Huben, you will be putting them in the rifling anyway, because airguns are 99% designed to put the pellet, or in this case a slug, in the rifling, not in the chamber, which is slightly bigger, but actually in the rifling, so on the lens and on the grooves. So this is one thing you have to consider. It will take more force simply because these are not hollow but cast solid. And when you will push them in, the front rings will take about the same amount of friction to put them in as the pellet's head, maybe a little more because there are more of them and you might use a harder alloy. But the rear ring will require more force to be pushed in. So make sure that this is something that's possible in airguns. I have the airguns, I've tested these slugs in the back, and I will show you how they fit or feed in the chamber later. Okay, let's just try them out. So this one is in 25, as you probably know. This is Hatsan Bt65, as you probably know from my videos. So this is the magazine. I will zoom in a bit. I will put just a few in so you can get an idea how it is to feed them. So it's same as pellet. I would advise that in the end, or even before, you put it to a flat surface so they are flush on each side, so they don't protrude out on either side. Okay, let's put it in. Of course, I will not fire any of these. I just wanted to show you what is the force required to feed them. So now I have one in front of the chamber, and I will just close it. I have the gun on safe. That's it. On Hatsan it's really quite easy because the barrel chamber is really quite deep, and so I will just decock and remove the magazine now. I don't want to have them ready to fire. That would be dangerous. Okay, next one. Caliber gun cricket. And we will get to powers later, so I will tell you how much power you can expect. So again, put 1, 2. 2 is enough to show you, I think. So let's zoom in again. So they are protruding slightly out either on the back or in the front, but that's not a problem because cricket actually has a bigger space for a magazine than the magazine is, so it shouldn't be a problem. Okay, let me make sure that we are in front of it. Yeah, here's one. Okay. No, this is empty, this one. Okay, so I will just close it now. I will decock it at the same time so it's not dangerous. So this one, it will require a little more force to close it, but it's still not a problem. Okay, so that's the cricket. Let's go to K1. So till now we were in caliber 25, and now we're starting with the 22, and this is the big size. And I will zoom back in. So right now I have in my hands version 2. So you put it in, little force, as you heard and maybe even seen, little force in the end to make sure that they're in snugly. And I noticed that these magazines are not always completely the same in all K1s. So you might need some additional force to push them in. In some case, maybe even to use some tool. But generally, in mine, both of mine fit perfectly with my fingers. Okay, so same procedure with version 1. So version 1. Same bullets, so the slightly bigger 22. So I have to use a little bit force to push them fully in, which is good, of course. You don't want the pellets loose in the magazine. So perfect fit. I don't have any more room to put the guns. Okay, and the last one which I tested, so this is what I had to test on. That's the only reason why I didn't test anymore. Actually, I have one more later, but I will show you that separately. This is the airgun Matador R5. And this is a single shot, so all you do is cock it back, and it's the 25 caliber. So let's take the 25 pellet, let's zoom in. Okay, so just to make sure, it requires some force right now, so I'm showing you as it is. So I have to use some force. I will just decock it now so it's not dangerous. Okay, decocked. Now I'll use a little more force, or even hit a little bit in order to close it. So this one is a little tighter, but shoots still quite well. Okay, so these are the guns. So let's get to the powers. Well, okay, I have first two more to show you. So this is the magazine for the Bt65 in 22, which is the same thing as 25. Pellets are approximately the same length, so they fit in the magazine just fine. So as I mentioned, it's good that you put them to the flat surface. That way you make sure that they're not protruding in any side, and they fit in the gun. And the last is the Daystate Magazine, or I believe that Brocock has the same magazine, I'm not absolutely sure. But same procedure, you put them in, rotate the second one in, and so on. So they're flush in the back and they're not protruding in the front, so the magazine can rotate. So this is a couple of versions. So let's get to the power as I started before. Okay, so all of these are stable past 100 meters, even at lower powers. Even if you're shooting at them at, let's say, 220, 230 meters per second, which is, I believe, 750 or 700 feet per second, they are still stable. So they're completely usable in this range. Because if your gun is not a really strong gun, that is the velocity that you will probably get with them. Now, if that is interesting for you, depends up to you. They will be accurate, but of course, with this low velocity, you get more drop at the long range, although they will not lose a lot of velocity, so that's the upside. But I would recommend, for example, in 22, this for guns that can do at least, I would say at least 60 joules, so that's what, 40 foot-pounds or up. I would recommend that you actually shoot those at about 100 joules, which is about 75 foot-pounds. But anything in between will work just fine. If you will go over 100 foot-pounds, I would say up to 1000 feet per second. If you cross the 1000 feet per second in 22, then you will probably start to lose accuracy a bit. Maybe not, depends on how accurately the slugs are made. It's about same story for the 25 caliber. With 25, I tested them, for example, cricket with no modification whatsoever, or like it comes out of the box. It was pushing them about 230 meters per second, which is, I believe, over 750 feet per second. So at that velocity, they were perfectly accurate, perfectly stable. So the important things was that they were stable, because that's usually the biggest issue with slugs. Same thing about Bt65. I did push both of these guns to quite much higher powers, higher velocities. I pushed them to about 110 joules, so that's about 85 foot-pounds. And then you get the most benefits out of having this kind of heavy slugs, of course. And same with R5, also performed very well when I pushed it up. So I raised the pressure on the regulator, and I adjusted the hammer spring to maximum what is possible, and then I got about, I think, about 250 to 260 meters per second, which is just over 100 joules or 75 foot-pounds. As for Huben, well, you know Huben can push them as much as you like, but generally, again, I would recommend to put the pressure of the regulator to about 170 to 180 bars, and shoot them just below 1000 feet per second. My setting is usually 295 meters per second, so that is about 970 feet per second, something like that. Anyway, you know the velocities probably by now if you're looking this video. So let's make let me show you the weights. So this is the smallest, so the 22 with the small diameter. It gets up to about 32.22. I'm not sure if you will be able to see that. No. So it's about 35.2 grains. 35.2, slightly heavier than Huben's bullets were, because they don't have a hollow rear part. Okay, so the bigger is slightly heavier, so it's 36 grains. This one is what I recommend for Huben. And the 25 caliber is 48 grains. Of course, it depends on the alloy. So now let's briefly talk about alloy. I have tested, that's why I have so many different boxes here. I have tested them out of pure lead, and then I tested from adding a 1:5 ratio. So these were the hardest, the pure lead were the softest. The hardest was 1:5 ratio of linotype, so one part linotype and 5 parts lead. And I have tested them in 1:10 ratio. 1:10 ratio seems to work best for me always, although I will say that Huben doesn't mind if you put a harder alloy. Actually, it prefers. Definitely, the only guns where I got good performance from pure lead is the guns that actually put the pellet or slug in the barrel, so in the rifling. Any gun that is shooting outside of the barrel, so like Huben, definitely it's better to have a harder alloy. And you don't lose almost any velocity, actually none whatsoever. I actually maybe got a couple of feet per second more, because they are lighter, of course, because they are less part lead, so the density is slightly lower. So let's get to the most important thing of those. They are accurate, but this is a casting process. Casting is you could say some sort of art, and if you're not good at it, I'm not saying that it's not possible that you will become. Of course, it is possible, but you have to practice. You have to know the temperature of the lead, so the alloy that you're using, temperature of your mold. Everything has to be appropriate to really have the perfect form. And why I'm saying this is because the biggest problem in forming a pellet or any kind of, not a pellet, a slug or any kind of bullet, even for firearms, is getting the rear part, so where you cut off the lead, nicely shaped. So this is the only reason why you can find that these pellets or slugs will ever be inaccurate, if you are not casting them up to higher tolerances. So if you're not casting them good enough. And sometimes you might get, let's say, a more rounded shape. I don't have any of those here because I'm quite picky and I really want to cast them as perfect as possible. So these are quite great. The edges must be relatively sharp. You should not have excessive lead going over them, the edges, but they have to be quite sharp and even all around. And if you do that correctly, then these will be very accurate. Now, for those of you that really aim for higher quality, there will be videos, and I have partnership with someone that I will be testing their slugs as well. So they are the similar or basically the same design of a slug, but with swaging process. And that one will be more accurate for sure, because casting is never as accurate as swaging. But I don't think that everyone will be able to afford that one. They will produce better accuracy results, but there are very much they are slower in terms of how fast you can make the slugs. So casting is actually very fast. Swaging is slower, and swaging kit, everything that you will need, is much more expensive. So you can wait for further videos when I will be testing those, and I will show the results of those as well. Actually, I can hardly wait to get my hands on them, and you can then decide. But with those, I still get a consistent accuracy of 2 MOA, and if I select pellets, so if I choose to check the rear edges and everything that is formed perfectly, then I can easily get up to 1.5 or even 1 MOA. So my, let's say, go-to target is always at 100 meters, 5 centimeters, which is just slightly more than 1.5 MOA. And I can hit those with Huben, with most guns here, all the time. Of course, if the casting procedure is done right. The good thing about swaging is that swaging is always perfect, because there is no temperature differential, there is no shrinking and expanding of the material. Everything is done cold and pushed to the walls of the die, and it's just no comparison. It's same procedure, same thing as you use with bullets. Swaged are always better than casts. So that's it for me, guys. I'm really excited about those. I really like shooting them, and these will definitely be my my selection when I want to shoot at long range. Of course, when I have both swaging dice as well as these cast options, I will probably use these in, let's say, non-competition, just sports shooting, and where I will use a lot of ammo, because I can really make those really fast. And if I will want a really key precision, then I will switch to the swage type, and those should be really perfect. So thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe, share, and also click on the bell button so you can see all my new videos that are coming up. I'm posting them now once a week. I hope that I will be able to do this as well in the future. And see you next time.